I'd be fine getting a free bowl win against Georgia State.
All right,
What I'm
hello
saying.
everybody, and welcome in. It is end of the regular season committee meeting, so we know how this kind of works. We've got five here. A lot of crazy games happened in the last week. Just a few reminders: we can only um, talk about what's already happened. We can't talk about what potentially could happen in the future. Obviously, um, no hypotheticals. As far as injuries go, you can talk about injuries that have already happened. If there's a pending injury, that won't be allowed for us to check until we're deciding actual playoff spots, which is next week. You can't talk about your team if they're brought up, so ECU, I can't talk about them. And kind of, yeah, I mean, you guys have all been here, done this before. We have 25 teams we need to rank. Um, we know every division winner now. We know conference championships. We know how many auto bids are at stake. So, yeah, let's get into it. I mean, the top two teams lost, so there's a lot of room for air at the top. We have really last week we kind of separated four teams from the pack. It was Clemson, Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Buffalo. Um, Buffalo beat Kent State um, by like 20. Ole Miss beat Mississippi State, a one-win team, by 5, but it's a rivalry. Ohio State barely lost to Michigan by 3, and then Clemson lost by 2 scores to Texas A&M at home. So with that being said, how do you guys feel about the top four?
Can we real quickly just point out how insane it is that NCAA has Ohio State at 11 and they're like in Clemson? Are we
Yeah, I
noticing
don't.
this?
Yeah,
That's
I don't
insane.
understand the
Yeah.
rankings.
They
Obvious.
overreact for them,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
my
definitely.
God.
so
Knee
don't pay
jerk.
attention to these rankings. These are not official especially because I just him to week 14 and then to championship week. So there's been 2 changes in the rankings now. So
Right. Okay.
yeah.
So, hot take. Here's my hot take. Okay. This is extremely hot. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I personally do not think the top 8 changes at all.
That's not a hot take. I have the exact same thing. The order changes, but I don't have anybody having
No,
dropped out of the top 8.
I mean, I think the order stays the exact same.
Oh.
So
I don't think the order changes.
I am also on that train. The one change in the top four I think I might be able to be talked into, and you might want to clip this if you're an SEC fan. I think Ole Miss might be number one because of the reason
Wow.
of the common opponent against Texas A&M. Obviously, Clemson lost Texas A&M by 2 scores, but it was a backup quarterback. This isn't a full strength Clemson
Who
team.
did Ole Miss lose to?
They are getting their quarterback back next week. So their only loss, and then Ole Miss beat Texas A&M, and their only loss is to 2 points to Northwestern, but they beat
Hmm.
Texas A&M by 2 scores. So that would be my only thing. The only thing I'd consider is going Ole Miss 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, then Buffalo 4. That would
You
be
said
my one change.
you said
I
Clemson's
mean,
getting their quarterback back next week.
Yes, it was a 2 week injury. If he picked up a
Okay.
questionable tag, he had week 15 to figure that out. So he should be good to go by the conference championship game. Should be, but we don't
I
know.
I truly think the top 8 as the order stands remains the same. I don't think that you can punish Clemson too much. Like, I get the common opponent thing, but I think that because of how poor Ole Miss's loss looks now, I think those kind of counteract, and so I think they're sort of on equal footing in that regard. And so whenever I talked about this earlier in the season, but whenever I think you're looking at two teams that are like equal footing, and you don't really know how, I think you have to give the nod to the defending national championship for that reason
Yeah,
only. I'd be okay to talk about Ole Miss and Ohio State flipping. But I think Clemson stays on top. I don't think you can put a one-loss Clemson team with a loss versus a decent Texas A&M team, right? With the starting quarterback hurt. I don't
I
think
can
that they lose their number one spot because of
I
that.
can agree with that because also if you're looking at Ole Miss, like yeah, they're winning, but these aren't really impressive. 3 points LSU, 3 points Texas, 5 points Mississippi State. Like the Arkansas State or the Arkansas game is really impressive. Texas A&M is really impressive, but these last 3 weeks of the season, let's check out just to cover our bases, Ohio State here. Big win of Oregon. They've gotten way better, but then kind of, just do their thing. Haven't really struggled versus anyone. This game doesn't look nearly as good now. Penn State kind of struggled. Easy win over Indiana, and then obviously the loss to their biggest rival. So, yeah, I'm fine keeping the top 4 the same. I probably think that's the right move. Because also, Minnesota, they also have quality wins over Minnesota and Boston College.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think because the thing about it is that the top 2 in Ohio State and Clemson before this week were like way beyond the pack because they were both undefeated. They're both like that. Those contingents, like they've won, the last 4 national championships or whatever it may be, right? Or the 3, the last. You know what I'm saying? So I think like they were always kind of like head and shoulders above the rest of them. Now I think they're coming back to a level playing field, but I think that it's like a closer gap rather than it is like a complete flip.
gotcha.
I'm gonna have a little bit of a wild ask here. Can we see Notre Dame's schedule real quick?
This man wants to put Notre Dame 1. Hey, I pushed.
I don't want to
them
put.
in media
I'm not
this week.
saying. I'm not saying Notre Dame 1. I am saying I have Notre Dame in the top 4.
That's kind of a doo-doo schedule, if I'm being
But
honest.
no, hold up though, because their 2 losses, they didn't have their quarterback. Same situation as Clemson. Same situation as Bama. Backup quarterbacks. It's kind of been the storyline of the year.
Yeah,
But these are some quality wins. Now, the thing that has kept Notre Dame out of every single playoff, the 4 that they've missed just barely, is strength of schedule. It's always been like 4 or 5 win teams. This year, that's what happened at the first half. But then they have that Georgia win, and now these are actually like not dog shit teams that they're beating. A USC is dog shit, but I mean, but then also Bama lost to fucking Auburn, so it's like.
yeah. Well, okay,
Smack
can I
your
be
head
honest with
against the
you?
table.
I want opinions from pretty much everyone here. I personally do not. I think that we generally hold a lot of weight in, this quarterback was hurt during this game, and I don't think we should. Only because I mean it's one of 22 guys on the field, right? This is a team sport, right? I understand it's the most pivotal role on a team, but at the end of the day, that also it kind of accounts for their depth, right? I mean, their quarterback could get hurt at in the playoffs. I mean, what what I'm saying? Like it kind of like depth does matter, right? So I don't want to like excuse. I'm not saying like we shouldn't put it into account, but I do think that we shouldn't excuse losses for it or like
Right.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So my take on it though is like Notre Dame and Baylor are the exact same in the exact same boat. They're both 10-2. Their both only losses are because their star quarterbacks, SFA players, were out for 2 weeks in a row and they
But
lost.
I wouldn't say that's the only reason though. You see what I'm saying?
Well,
Like
yeah, but that's like the most notable thing, and I don't think it
sure.
excused them. But then also naysayers can have the case. Well, we'd be undefeated if we were healthy.
I think
Yeah.
that
But yeah,
you can use the. I think that the missing the quarterback is something where you could see it swing for like the Navy game, where it was still a close game. I don't think that. I think that the Stanford game, if you're losing by 22, there's not. Your starting quarterback is not going to make up that difference. Like if it's a less than 10-point swing,
Mm.
I could see that being arguable. So like if we were like the Navy game is whatever it is, the quarterback was missing. For the Stanford game, if you lose by 22, you lost by 22. A quarterback
Right.
yeah,
can maybe bring back maybe 10, 14 points, but you bring back 14 points and you still lose 30-38. Like it's one of those that if you put it just a 10-point swing with a starting QB, there's still 11-1 with a big loss to Stanford. So that would be how I would interpret that.
yeah, and it probably won't matter this ranking, but just something to keep an eye on is that the 4 teams that the backup quarterback fiascos has hurt the most, at least in our last week's ranking, is Clemson, obviously, Notre Dame, ECU, and Baylor. So they're all projected playoff teams at this point based on our last week's rankings. So it's just something to keep an eye on. But I think for this week, are we all agreeing it's Clemson, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Buffalo again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Personally would put Ole Miss over Ohio State.
That's I can entertain that. I can. I think that overall, the strength of schedule does favor Ole Miss because
It
if
does.
you look at Ohio State, you have UAB, NIU,
Wisconsin's
Purdue.
better than 7, but once again, injuries. It's the
Yeah.
CFO is the quarterbacks.
They
so
were great when they had Stingley, but as soon as
Right.
they lost Stingley, it's
It
their
went downhill.
season tanked. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then same thing with Michigan State. No Calvin Johnson, no McBurn fingers. So this team's 8-4. So that kind of hurts Ohio State with their strength of schedule. But then we go to Ole Miss. But I just think the quality of these opponents, like these two, whatever. Tennessee, okay. Oklahoma had a great second half of the season, so they kind of got back up there, especially with the big game day blowout. TAMU, that helps them. The Arkansas is the kind of the one for me that's the standout one on the road. 20-point win is kind of impressive, and then obviously getting the close game wins. So yeah, I would be fine putting Ole Miss at. I think there's an argument for 1 or 2. So I personally don't have a.
I'm okay with Clemson 1, Ole Miss 2, Ohio State 3, Buffalo 4, Notre Dame 5. I think that's how it should be.
That
Yeah.
is, that's what I'm looking at for my 5. My top 5, too.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay. Now, just for the naysayers, we haven't even looked at Buffalo, so let's take a look. My take is there's a lot of big wins, lots of offense. They have a good defense, but I mean, 1, 2 winning team, 3 winning teams, 4 winning teams, 5. Just that Kent put 35 on them is like, you know what I mean?
They haven't beaten a team that's won more than 8 games. I think that's the thing is like there's
Yeah.
not anybody on their schedule, right? Like that's
Yeah.
here's the thing too, right? Is that Buffalo has had as good of a season as they possibly could have had. Like they have 100% possibly. No other team can say that, but I think their bar, their strength schedule limits their high. It limits their ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a common trend in the SFA. We've never had a G5 team at number 1 in near the end of the season. The highest is twice it's been number 2. It was UAB, and then it was also Memphis at the end of the year. So I don't think that they touch these top 3 teams at the moment, just in terms of strength of schedule. Because the thing that worries me is like they're averaging over 38 points a game, or 34, facing teams that aren't 8-win teams. And then that one 8-win team, like the defense still play well, but now the offense does what they did against Clemson, just didn't score any points. They scored 20. So it's kind of scary because it could wind up like last year. But obviously we have to play the games. They're the only undefeated team left, so they deserve the 4 spot. Okay, so Clemson, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Buffalo, Notre Dame. Okay, next tier based on last week is ECU, Georgia, Baylor, and then the 2 quote-unquote first 2 out were Nebraska and Arkansas. So let you guys discuss until I'm ranked.
I personally didn't have any of them changing. I thought that all of them, everybody won, everybody proved that they should be where they are as far as delivering when they should. The one, I think ECU, I would keep it 6. I could see an argument for flipping Baylor and Georgia, with Baylor getting back into the championship game. I know Georgia's in theirs as well, but being able to just demolish these last couple of opponents. Obviously, not the strongest of opponents, but the absolute demolition they put on them. I think that they might have I wouldn't be mad if those 2 flip spots at 7, 8, but I wouldn't take either of them out of the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on Baylor and just in general is the thing that's been dragging them down this season is they've had this hanging Jayhawk over their head all season long ever since they lost 2 in a row. It's like Kansas has a 2-game lead. Kansas had a 2-game lead. Then they beat them head to head. Then it's 1-game lead, 1-game lead. Kansas has given them a gift, and this is a team that obviously national championship appearance last year, and obviously everyone knows the streak, 6 in a row. I don't, it's like Baylor is inevitable until they prove that they aren't. For me, so for me, I like it. Like I don't think that they lose to Nebraska. I just don't see how it happens. Obviously, there's a plethora of ways, but I think that this team has a good chance of jumping into the 5 or the top 4 with a win next week because of losses or whatever. But I think that they are good enough to jump Georgia. But the whole 2-loss, there's 3 teams. It's the Notre Dame, Georgia, and Baylor. It's another thing where you can't really put a wrong order.
Right. I think this is I mean, this feels like one of those that probably will matter for seeding, but that's kind of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that'll kind of work itself out next week as well with all that.
Yeah, I'm not super. Yeah, I'm not super pressed on like who we rank. I will say this. I think based on last week's ranking, I don't think Baylor beating a 2-10 Oklahoma State team merits them jumping Georgia.
Yeah.
Especially because Georgia beat 5-7 Georgia Tech.
Yeah, when I feel like Georgia Tech is definitely a more respectable team. I don't think that based on how we ranked them last week, I don't think that Georgia deserves to fall to a team that just beat a 2-10 team. Like, I think that keeping it the same again, because it doesn't necessarily matter, and I think it's just going to raise less questions.
Right.
Is probably the better way to go about it.
Yeah, it's they haven't done anything to deserve dropping by winning. So in the end, I mean, they're going to have to face number 2 Ole Miss next week. So, it like you said, it will likely resolve itself next week after championship game, but not a big thing to need to change it this week.
Okay, so
Exactly.
I have ECU, Georgia, Baylor, and then we had Nebraska 9 last week. I think it's the same. To me, they're the best team remaining. Next teams, we have Arkansas, Arizona State, Kansas lost, Boston College, Minnesota. So Arkansas State maybe, but
I will say I did not watch the committee VOD. I know, shame on me. What was the reasoning for Arkansas over Arizona State?
well, let's talk about it. So I think part of it was that they've been on a bye for a couple of weeks, right? But they had the blemished Ole Miss, which they're a top team in the country. It's kind of hard to do, but that big win over Baylor. They do have the head-to-head loss to Nebraska. What was
that is a rough schedule.
Yeah, they have a great schedule, and then the Arizona State has a terrible schedule. Wake, Indiana, Cal, they did get a win. That's their best win. The 1-point loss to Oregon really sucks, but you can't really.
I do understand.
Yeah,
I get it now.
But then Wyoming, there's just no wins that are like super impressive, and then you lay a dud win on your biggest game. It's like, but then they got a big win this week. Did Arkansas even play though? That's the question.
Yes, Arkansas won by
5.
Now that is a common opponent between the two. Arizona State destroyed them, but I don't think that necessarily matters. So
yeah, it's a win on both sides. I don't think margin of victory matters as much.
Yeah. So like Nebraska, Arkansas, Arizona State, I'm still good with because Nebraska is the head-to-head over Arkansas.
Yeah. Agree.
Same.
Nebraska. If this is a 12-team playoff, Big 12 would be rolling. All right, Arizona State. All right, this is where it gets interesting. Kansas loses, put up a real stinker over Kansas State. Next, you have Boston College and Minnesota, both locked out of their CCG, so their seasons are over. So, And then Arkansas State as well is in this tier. So you got 2 9-3 teams, and then the 10-2 Arkansas State with arguably the best player in the country. But Boston College beat Louisville. Should have beaten Clemson, but they didn't. And Minnesota, what did they do this week?
They beat BYU by 21.
BYU. Yeah. So the question is, I mean, they both played Clemson within 3 points. So
Is the win again? This gets into the semantics of is one win better than another? Of does the win the 21-point victory over BYU overtake the 11-point win over a 3-9 Louisville? I don't think it's enough to make a change between the two as far as putting Minnesota over Boston College, but they both would move up one and to take Kansas' spot.
Yeah, I would agree with just like ranking Boston College and Minnesota. Because the thing I was looking at Minnesota's schedule. I really like Minnesota's schedule. They have only played 2 teams that are not bowl eligible right now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So they've just like constantly played random decent opponents. And I mean, they lost at Illinois in overtime. They lost to Clemson, and they lost at Iowa. I don't feel like those are 3 pretty solid losses.
Yeah, the losses are better, definitely, for Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But do they have a win? Like, the Michigan State is the best win. What's the ACC? So, okay, common opponents-wise, Central Michigan, they destroyed them. It took overtime for Minnesota. They actually beat Illinois. Minnesota didn't.
Yeah, that's also fair. I think I like Boston College ahead of them.
This loss is a little bit worse, but FSU was okay. I think common opponents, you pick Boston College. If you go based off losses, you go Minnesota. So, I don't know.
I think common opponent, in my opinion, is more important than quality loss. Yeah. Quality loss is far down on my ladder, to be honest.
I know. Odd for an SEC dick rider, honestly. They normally love the quality loss. All right, so 12 and 13 set. This next tier, we still have Kansas 4 loss. We have Georgia Southern, who's now 9 and 3, and then Arkansas State. I think Arkansas State's clearly 14.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're clearly the next tier of G5 after the Buffalo ECU tier.
I think that I think that Arkansas State is definitely the one to go with here. I have a thought for the next 2 after that, but let us confirm this first.
Yeah, okay, so Arkansas State 14. Now you got a big clusterfuck. So I like to rank division winners as long as they're like semi-decent. I don't think you rank Utah. I think you probably still give Iowa a rank at the very end, just because that second half, if you were watching, was really, really good. Yeah. And then G5. Let's just do a quick glance because we got to figure out who we're ranking. I think Rutgers maybe gets a shout.
SMU, Louisiana.
Yeah, and that's one of the big weird things here is like Houston is a really good team to rank, but they also aren't playing in this next game. So it's kind of a weird. Obviously, SMU we're going to rank as well. I think you rank Louisiana. I actually don't think you rank Ball State. Maybe you do, but they're 68 overall, 9 and 3. We'll see at the end.
They'll get ranked if they beat Buffalo.
Yeah. Mountain West Air Force, no chance. San Diego State lost this week. They were our 23 team. So
I have them dropping out just because if you're already that close to the edge, you can't stay in at that point.
I think Georgia Southern probably still gets a late rank. And then obviously we have Arkansas State at 14. Okay, so That's just kind of where we're at here. But based on last week's rankings, the best teams, quote unquote best teams, Kansas, Georgia Southern, and then we have a new tier that was California, Houston, Oregon, Oklahoma, Iowa. So probably for me, the team that jumps here would be Oregon because of the division. They beat Cal head-to-head. They have a chance to play for a Pac-12 championship. I think that compared to Kansas at this point, they're kind of the better 4-loss team. And I think I would probably rank Houston still over Oregon if they were playing next week.
I personally have Cal over. I have my 15 as Cal, 16 at Oregon, 17 of Kansas.
So how do you put or how do you put Cal over Oregon when they have the direct head-to-head and they have the division?
I have it for that extra win for Cal, being the 9-3 versus the 8-4. I think that Cal, we had them ranked higher last week. You're right with the division, that could be the tiebreaker that puts them over, but I don't think that. I guess it's another one of those. Does Cal deserve to lose a spot because they won, and they won pretty handily? I know it was to a 2-10 team, but they still won. There's still a 9-3 team, and Oregon absolutely needs to be ranked. But they have the head-to-head, but they are still at it's the 8-4 versus 9-3 at that point with a much higher quality. And also, Oregon played Oregon State. It was a 4-point win against a 3-9 team versus Cal, blowing out a 2-10 team. Neither of them are great opponents, but it was still a much more impressive ending there, a much more impressive last game to end out the season.
I'm gonna give this argument for Oregon. I think that Oregon, it's kind of one of those situations where, like, if we're talking about IRL football, they kind of figured out their shit, right? Like, if you look at their schedule, they started off 1-3.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a bit, especially whenever you're like beating teams like Cal, Washington State, Washington. I feel like those are pretty quality wins at Colorado. Those are like decently quality wins at UCLA, right? And they went on this long string at ASU, right? I think that's probably the best win out of any of it, right? I think that winning 7 of your last 8 games versus, I do think Cal had a lot of games in the beginning that I think now they're looking at their story is the same, but I think like another thing is, head-to-head versus ASU. You're talking about quality, common opponent as well.
If you want another common opponent, though, Cal just blew out Boise here to end the season. Oregon lost to Boise in week 7, week 6, week 7.
Ooh. Yeah, it was
which is a real blemish on their spot. The losses here for Cal are to division winner Oregon, but number 10 ASU and Syracuse, where at least they're bowl eligible. Whereas Oregon has that big blemish. They have that extra loss, and it's to a 2-10 team. It's one of that team's only 2 wins.
Yeah, that's fair. I get it. I could go either way on it. I think if I had to pick, I would still pick Oregon, simply because of the head-to-head and the division. I think if we're debating the 2 teams and there's a head-to-head, I think I always am going to lean towards the winner of the head-to-head.
That's fair.
Yeah, Yui, what do you have?
Yeah, I think, they both have common opponents that one beat and one didn't, but then Oregon does have the head-to-head and the division, so I think that just puts them a little bit ahead of Cal.
That's fair.
The Pac-12 After Dark spokesperson has spoken. Oregon at 15. I'm good with Cal at 16 because it was a 3-point game. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Kansas is in a free fall of sorts. And then we also have Georgia Southern. But we also have Houston, Oklahoma, Iowa.
Texas A&M in somewhere.
Yeah, we still have a lot to rank. But I think
Being
Houston,
honest, you think Houston here?
maybe.
I think Kansas here.
I think
I think,
Kansas is
yeah.
17.
All right, let's take a look because like the 2-win difference could be impactful. So lost to Ohio, that's game day, double OT. They had a 22-point comeback. We know that. Oklahoma lost on the road, 4 points. That's just a toughie. And then the loss of Baylor, can't fault it. But this is the stinker. What about Houston? I know they lost to Louisiana, and they lost to Michigan State. They did beat UNLV. Did they beat anyone else? They beat SMU. Is that enough? I don't know. I'm fine giving it to Kansas. They've been a player. They have the quarterback. It was a rivalry game, I guess. But I think these are the next 2 teams you rank.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down for Kansas and then Houston.
Yeah.
I honestly, can we take this again? Maybe a hot take. Can we take a look at Oklahoma?
Oklahoma. I love this Oklahoma team with the
I
backup
have,
quarterback.
yeah, I have Kansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and then Houston.
You
Oh,
have Houston dropping. All right. Well, I guess let's look at Texas A&M. The thing about this team is their losses are just the best teams in the country. They've faced 4 playoff teams, and they won one of them. And Oklahoma. So Oklahoma has the head-to-head over Kansas. They have the head-to-head over Texas A&M. What's Oklahoma's schedule? 8th in the SEC. Ugh.
well,
All right, LSU's
doggy
tough,
dog
wins
world.
OT. Ole Miss. Okay. Kansas, obviously, is who they're ranking against. The Auburn loss is the stinker. Then some quality wins. I mean,
It's a terrible loss versus Auburn. Holy shit.
yeah.
At
Yeah,
home
Auburn.
versus Auburn.
That Auburn is
I
a
mean,
sore thumb.
Oklahoma State is a rivalry, but they're 2-10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we beat them by 5.
The Oklahoma State one, a win is a win. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like a huge thing. I think that the big thing that for me, where it's an ending strong sort of note, is that absolute annihilation of Arizona
Yeah.
the week prior. Where I know it's weird now because they're not bowl eligible, but they're not. They've always played better than they were, and then to just get absolutely annihilated by Oklahoma, it feels like Oklahoma's a stronger team than that Auburn loss lets on.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of talking me into it. I think Oklahoma is a perfectly fine spot here. They were 20 last time. Kansas completely lost, like, all of their hopes and dreams. And then Houston, they don't have the CCG. You're a G5. That's your ticket to any sort of relevancy at all. Like, we've never had a playoff team that hasn't won their conference as a G5, so I'm fine with them dropping, even though they're a 10-win team. And then you have the head-to-head over Kansas and Texas A&M, which are probably the next 2 rankable teams, unless you talk about Georgia Southern. But yeah, I'm fine with Oklahoma here.
So Kansas
Yeah,
17, Oklahoma 18.
I would put Oklahoma 17 because of head-to-head.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Down for that.
Yep.
And then I think Kansas it's a 6 rank drop when you go from playoff potentially losing to a 5-6 team. Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so I just want to go back through and make sure we haven't missed any teams here. So now, based on last week's rankings, we have Georgia Southern, Houston, Iowa, FSU. I don't think we rank. San Diego State, probably not. SMU, you definitely have to rank here. So let's go through, just do like a state of the this is where we kind of write down all the rankable teams. I think you have to rank Miami.
Yep.
Maybe at the end, or at least consider them. North Carolina, do we consider ranking them? They're locked out of the CCG, but they are an 8-win team.
I have them at 26, just outside.
All right, well,
they're
I'll write them down
rankable.
then. Yeah, I'll write them down.
Yeah, rankable.
Rutgers, we wrote them down last week. Think you gotta write them down again.
Mhm.
None of these other teams, they're all locked out. Yeah, no reason to. Arkansas, we already ranked. West Virginia, I'll write them down. Just take a look. But
I really like their wins. They have good wins.
Mhm.
the South, nobody else. Big Ten, Michigan State, we didn't even consider them last week. Do you guys think that
I think we
win
should
over
consider.
the Terps? All right,
Should
I'll
be
write 'em down
considered.
at least.
Yeah, considered. I wouldn't put it strongly, but considered.
Yeah. Iowa, I think, is still good enough to be ranked despite
I
2
was gonna say,
losses.
I didn't see the second half of that game, so I can't say too much about that. But man, they don't feel they feel like a real difficult one to rank over somebody like a 9-3 Rutgers.
It was.
Sorry.
So you watched the first half, right? Did you see the first half?
No, I
okay.
didn't get to see the game at all. I only saw the results on that one.
So basically, Nebraska absolutely dominated the entire first half, and then it was the exact opposite. It's just they ran out of time at the end. They were down 7, got inside the 10, got sacked, and then had one more play and couldn't get it to the end zone.
Gotcha. Okay, so
Yeah.
closer than it originally looked.
Yeah, it was a they had a halftime talk and it was not awful. Louisiana, I think you have to rank. Obviously, we have Houston still to consider. SMU kind of got to rank. They've had a great year. Independence, we already got Notre Dame. MAC, I'm gonna write down Ball State, but I don't have high hopes for them. Mountain West, no, fuck them. UNLV, I mean,
We
it's
can
like
consider.
I don't know why you rank a team like Houston. Would
They're
be the
9-3, but they're locked out. Yeah.
Yeah, Cal we already ranked. Washington, no. Utah, maybe I'll put them down if we're desperate.
As I say, if we had them at 25 last week, just because
Yeah.
they were a division winner and then they lost, it's hard to justify.
Yeah, Alabama's out.
Hey,
lost to
maybe.
Auburn.
Hey,
Finished strong. They finished strong.
they have finished
3 in
pretty
a
strong.
row.
Look at that win over Texas. God dang.
Look at those losses. God, man.
They went from 3-6 to
Oh,
6-6. They're on a streak. They're hot.
I've played 3 top 5 teams. What do you want from me?
Hey, I
Wins.
think
That's what we want is
I
wins.
think we have to rank A&M.
Yeah.
That's the only rankable team left, and then obviously last but not least, you got JSOW. I don't think you rank Coastal, even though they had the head-to-head.
Yeah.
And then Southern Miss, no. Okay,
They
so
always have
for
the
we
head
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots left, and I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 teams. So we got to trim half of the flesh.
Oh boy.
Oh,
So the best of the rest for me, the first one is A&M. You beat number 1, you deserve to be ranked.
yeah.
Can we look
Just
at them
circle them.
versus? Can we see Louisiana's schedule? That's the
Yeah.
other one I had.
So yeah, I think it's between A&M, Louisiana, Houston, and maybe even SMU, honestly. So here is Louisiana, lost their first 2 games. Kent sucks. ULM is a little shitty as well.
Yeah.
ISU it was a big win at the time. Now it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, Houston has the head-to-head loss, but they have the common opponent. Their one big loss is Michigan State, and then obviously the head-to-head.
That's a tough schedule, man. That's a tough schedule for a
Yeah.
G5.
SMU, and then SMU, they lose the head-to-head to Houston, so I think that's impactful here.
Yeah.
Miami wins kind of big.
The good news for them is the UCLA loss looks way better than we thought it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, go Coach Huey.
All right, so I think out of those 3 teams, I think you have to just honor the kind of the head-to-head trail. Louisiana, Houston, SMU.
Yeah.
Even though Houston is the better team, I think, but you have to just go head-to-head. And then where does Texas A&M fit in it? They have probably the best strength of schedule in the country.
Do we go? my thought originally would be Louisiana, A&M, Houston. How I would have is Louisiana, A&M, Houston, Georgia Southern, SMU.
I kind of
Like
agree
that's
on SMU being further back. I do think that SMU, like, while it is a 10-win team, I agree, and I think they've had a really great season. I do think that their wins aren't anything crazier than any of the other teams that would be in front of them. So I kind of agree with that. I'm down for I like those rankings for the most part.
But roll back and forth, CUSA, someone else, CUSA, someone else, CUSA.
Yeah, I mean the thing
yes,
about
yeah.
A&M is
I can back off a little bit on that. Being the CUSA Dick Ryder here, I can try and back off a little bit there. Sorry about that.
no, you're
No,
good.
it's all good. They're going to
Um,
be ranked anyway, so
yeah,
it's not for
I
order.
A&M, it's just one of those teams that beats the teams they're supposed to beat and then lose to the teams they're supposed to lose to, and then they got lucky against Clemson. So it's because of the backup quarterback. So I'm fine with Louisiana, even though we didn't rank them last week. Though that's the thing is 7 spots because we had them like 26 last week.
Yeah,
That's true.
fair.
They did secure the division this week.
Yeah, but then again, it's like a win over Tulane isn't necessarily like. I guess
That's
you just
3
like
points.
do we even consider like obviously we've been kind of going off of what we thought last week, but then again we have all this new information. I think it's fine to rank them higher.
I mean, and even we even said, I think at the end of last week, that a lot of this end side would change as things resolve themselves for the championship
Right.
game. So like we had a feeling that these last, 7 to 10 spots could be really up in the air depending on how this week went. And so
Yeah, last week we were like you could pick any of these teams and it'd be fine. So okay. Yeah, I'm good with Louisiana, A&M, and then you have Houston.
Houston,
Now,
Georgia.
let's take a look at Georgia Southern because I think SMU is probably still better just because of the losses from Georgia Southern recently. Like this USF loss is horrible. We got smoked by ISU, smoked by USF.
Seeing
Close
how
one.
bad USF got smoked by UCF this week, that loss
Yeah.
was
yeah,
That was rough. So the thing is the division enough to back. I mean, they're both division winners though, because we're talking about SMU here.
it's true.
yeah. The original rankings I had was because we had Georgia Southern last week at that 16 spot, and SMU was barely in at 24. So it felt like more evening it out. But again, like I just said, we knew this was all going to be a toss up. So if SMU went over Georgia Southern, would not argue that either.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
said,
so
quality loss to an amazing team like UCLA. So.
yeah, so what I kind of go for on these when it's like G5s typically is I care about what they did against the Power 5 because when you're at this ranking as a G5 team, we know you're the best team in your conference. You kind of just run through those games, it's whatever. So Miami overtime win and a USC killing and then a loss to UCLA game day style, keep that in mind. And then you've got Georgia Southern, who did beat they beat Michigan State on the road, got absolutely annihilated by Iowa State, and then did they face any other Power Fives? No, they faced Rice, so just 2. So it was like a win over a Michigan State team that was a different Michigan State team at that time. Iowa State, you get smoked. Or is it 2-1 with a meh? I mean, technically, the UCLA loss is better when you look at just paper, but when you're thinking about the scope of the season, it's a little different. But then you also have these losses to shit stains like USF.
Yeah, I think
They also
that
had a backup quarterback. I think it doesn't matter who we rank here, but
I think that the more we look at it, the more I'm thinking SMU over Georgia Southern. I think that USF loss, getting their shit rocked there, just really feels like a tiebreaker between the two.
Yeah,
it's good.
in Houston, yeah, I would probably agree there. Okay. All right, so for now we got SMU and then JSOU. So now we have 2 spots left after all that G5 madness. So let me cross these teams out. So we have ULL, we have Houston, we have SMU, we have JSOU ranked, A&M we ranked. Who else? Let's see, Iowa, Rutgers. I mean, based on the rest of these teams, the rest of the teams I have written down is
How many
West
spots do we
Virginia.
have left?
We have 2, so
Ooh,
24,
West
25.
Virginia.
We have West Virginia, Rutgers, UNC, Miami, who has a division, Michigan State, Iowa, Utah, UNLV, and Ball State. I
If
think
I was to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would say Miami next, and then Iowa to finish it out. But
Ooh, I want to see West Virginia. I think
Yeah,
West Virginia has really good wins.
I personally have Miami and Rutgers as the last 2.
Ooh,
I know, spicy.
maybe
So-
I'm wrong.
yeah, I'm not.
Okay,
What
Never
were you
mind.
looking
For whatever reason, I don't know, man. I thought they had better wins. TCU.
I mean, if they didn't have this Mizzou loss, this would be a great schedule. But that just kind of
Yeah,
takes me
it's
out
tough.
of the West Virginia love fest. Yeah, okay, they're out. UNC, I think you have to just leave out. I think this comes down to probably the last division winners. I think Miami, Iowa, Rutgers, and Utah.
I don't think you rank Iowa above like a Michigan State. I don't.
How? Iowa's good.
Iowa's 7-5.
Well, yeah, I think
I
I
was
think
gonna
the
say,
easy
we would-
choice here is Miami.
Yeah,
Easy choice is Miami.
Yeah.
Miami at 24, and then it's figuring out that last spot that's going to be the challenge.
Okay, so let's put Miami down for now at 24, and it is fine because they lost in overtime to SMU. SMU's 2 spots ahead. Makes sense. Cool. All right, so who do we have left? We have UNC. Just a quick flash. I don't think they're in. It's an overtime loss to Miami. That's tough. Virginia.
No,
it's
this is pretty rough.
poop. Yeah. Okay.
That's
Let's take a look. This is Rutgers. Virginia Tech, Northwestern, their Power 5 games, they did not, but then they kind
No.
of dominated everyone but Marshall. I mean,
No,
I don't.
I
I want to rank them for the top 25 win, but
I know you do, but no, those are
can't,
doo-doo
yeah.
doo-doo jeans. I'm
I'm
sorry.
trying to.
But they're a division winner.
I'm
Division
trying to-
winner.
I know. I'm trying to tame my American Dick Rider-ness. Michigan State, the injuries have kind of toasted this team. I don't know if a win over the Terps changes my mind.
That Penn State loss where he just caved in and gave up. That really rubs wrong, especially to end a 3-game skid.
While I get it, I think that they've had a pretty tough schedule. I understand, like the Penn State loss, pretty rough. I think any team that we're looking at here has had a pretty comparable loss.
Yeah.
I
No one's
think
perfect
that
here.
right. I think if you're looking outside of that, you're looking at them having 2 losses to Ohio State and Minnesota, right? And then you have a win versus Houston, and then a loss versus Georgia Southern. So like all of their other losses are teams that are ranked ahead of them.
Curb stomped by Penn State. Absolutely
And then
annihilated.
I agree, but then we also have the win versus SESU. I do
All
like
right.
Michigan State here more than I do Iowa, if I'm being
so,
honest.
the Miami, Ohio, and Iowa State.
Oh my
But then they kind of pop off. The Minnesota win, common opponent. Another common opponent. Northwestern.
Oh my God!
Lost to Wisconsin
Lost
on
at
game day.
Wisconsin. Terrible loss.
Michigan beat Ohio State. And then
Yeah, but
Nebraska, they
Michigan
played a
State
really
also
good second
has. Michigan State also has a win versus Michigan, so it's like that.
half.
That's
Yeah, but
not
who
like a.
cares?
That's not my narrative.
But Fuck it, Illinois. Here we
All right, well,
The hardest argument is for the 25th spot in the college football playoff rankings. Who would have thought?
it's what we care about. All right, let's look at Utah, see if they have even a shout here. I don't think so, but
Utah.
The answer is no. The answer
Utah
is
State lost. That's pretty quality. Oregon State, UCLA.
ooh, look at that quality loss to Colorado. God damn.
Hey, Colorado's good.
They've been a historic
Well,
playoff
eligible,
team.
baby.
Let them cook. All right. Utah's out. Last team we have written down. Let's just take a look.
Tennessee.
Ohio
Oh,
State. Oh,
We have UNLV written down here. I mean,
Ooh.
they beat Louisville or Louisiana. Arkansas State they beat, but then they just shit themselves late in the season.
I don't know. I don't
Look
mind
at-
this actually.
Yeah, now that I look at it again, the fact that they lost their again, we're throwing division winner out there. They lost to their division winner.
No.
They had a close loss that first week to Houston, who we have ranked above them, and then they have the one other. I don't remember who the third loss was to, but it was a close one to a bowl eligible team. That's not
it's
the
nice.
worst argument
Dude.
for 25.
My man's pulled up
If
Ball
Buffalo
State.
if Buffalo loses to this team,
I don't know,
let him
man.
let it down. He's played 2 teams over 500, and he lost to both of them by multiple scores.
Big-
So,
Oh,
Big win
Oh.
versus an SEC school in there.
I think for me it comes down to I just don't think you can rank UNLV if they're not playing next week.
What? I
don't.
disagree hard.
I would rather
I-
put Michigan State here, but
What?
I mean, I would
you
put.
like this team? Oh,
Yeah.
Now looking at this, I do like this team more.
You made the mistake of showing us this because we were all like, no, not a chance. But now it's like, oh,
all
they
right.
beat Louisiana.
He's so right.
We
They
avoid.
beat Arkansas State. Those are 2 big wins. I mean, ranked wins at this point. Barely edged out by Houston in week 1, where you're still trying to find yourself. Fresno State overtime loss to not the worst team, not a great team either, and then losing at San Diego State, the division winner. That would have been the game that would have put them over if they could have, but still not a terrible loss. There's nothing that really screams bad loss anywhere in there to me.
All right, I'm gonna pencil them in at 25. Let's go back through every division, and then just to make sure we're
Pencil 'em
okay,
in.
not ranking them. Clemson, we did not rank FSU. That's fine. NC State, no. We did rank Boston College. The Coastal, we ranked Miami. That's it. We did not rank Rutgers. We're fine with that based on their schedule. ECU, nobody else. Oh God, I'm gonna get away from that screen. Nebraska, we have Arkansas. We did not rank West Virginia. That's fine. We ranked these 2 teams. Cool. Big Ten, we did not rank anyone else here.
Would be
We
controversial.
we only ranked Minnesota. We didn't rank anybody else here. We ranked Louisiana, Houston, and SMU. Independence, obviously Notre Dame. MAC, Buffalo is it. And then we're fine not ranking Air Force. We're fine not ranking San Diego State, but ranking UNLV. Pac-12. We got Oregon, we got Cal, nobody else. Then we got Arizona State, nobody else. And then SEC, ranked, no. Ranked,
Are you sure?
no, ranked. Okay. And then we have Georgia Southern, and we have Arkansas State. Okay, I'm going to go back through 1 through 25. Let's make sure that we're all good with it. Number 1 is Clemson. Number 2, Ole Miss. Number 3, Ohio State. Buffalo, 5 Notre Dame, 6 ECU, 7 Georgia, 8 Baylor, 9 Nebraska, 10 Arkansas, 11 Arizona State, 12 BC, Boston College, 13 Minnesota, 14 Arkansas State, 15 Oregon, 16 Cal, 17 Oklahoma, 18 Kansas, 19 Louisiana, 20 A&M, 21 Houston, 22 SMU, 23 Georgia Southern, 24 Miami, and 25 UNLV.
Yes.
Are we good?
So
Yes,
it's
yes.
Signing off on it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Tampa
Cool. Thank you guys.
Yes.
Final meeting will be after conference championships on Tuesday. That's the day. So it'd be
I feel like
about
there were less meetings this year.
Yep, there were, because
Yeah.
last year we we were starting it after week 10, but then we were like, nothing's changed. So
That's fair.
yeah, just not clogging up your guys' schedules.
We
and
saved
having
it. We saved it for the spicy weeks.
Well, yeah, because how I thought is your initial rankings are week 13, cool, and then after week 14, you know the conference championship, so there's movement, and then obviously the final important ones. So I think that's the better way to do it. We can always change it next year, but yeah. All right,
Yeah.
that's gonna do it
I like
for the VOD. And